Hello everyone, my name is Mitch from the Digital Camera Academy, and today we are going to be talking about manual profiles and manual settings inside your camera. What to do to get the best results with the settings that are at your disposal. If you're new to digital cameras and you're just learning your way around all the buttons, you may find that there's a lot of different options that you may have. There's this, there's that, you don't know what this means, you don't know what that means. It can get extremely confusing. One of the more common questions that I get asked by people who do photos or videos are, what are those letters at the very top of the camera? If you take a look at this camera here, you can see you can't really see it, but this is a Canon 80D, and if you look, there's an M, AV, TV, P, C1, C2, all kinds of different options here. The one we're going to be talking about today specifically is the M, which stands for manual. Manual is pretty much putting you in the driver's seat of the photo or the video that you're taking. You will be able to customize each individual setting for the scene that you're about to take. We're going to talk more specifically about why you should always shoot in this mode as any other modes. There is sometimes you may use other modes, but most of the time you're going to use the manual mode setting. I've made the mistake myself of shooting in manual mode and not getting in the habit of checking my settings all throughout the day and really messing up some pictures and photos, but not too bad. So we're going to run you through a checklist from number 1 through to number 5, so you don't make those mistakes that I have in the past and you ain't got to have this worry at all. And to make it easier for you, there's also a PDF download that is associated with this email that you got this link from. So be sure to download that, read it through. There's even an iPhone wallpaper on there as well. Screenshot it and use it on the day of your big shoot. Now, something I always hear is, why can't I use automatic mode, which is the A or the A+ on your camera? Now, I know people who take photos professionally in my area that use nothing but this mode. I also think that their images are probably some of the worst. So just because you see a professional photographer out there at a wedding or somewhere doing this, you know, I consider automatic mode to be cheating a little bit, but cheating has its drawbacks. You don't get the best results. So let's get you out of the automatic mode and put you in the M mode where you belong. The problem with automatic mode is that your camera is pretty much guessing with the picture that it is taking. Okay, it's not a brain, it's not eyes, it's not what you have. Okay, the camera is doing all the guesswork other than you telling the camera what to do. You could take a picture or video in automatic and it'd be totally different than what you're seeing, because literally the camera is guessing. I think this is right, giving the light and what I am seeing. So it is not a brain, it's not a pair of eyes. So it's best that you know how to adjust these settings on your own. So we're gonna go from number 1 to number 5. I like to go through this order in sequence. For my opinion, it's not really most important to least important. I think the most important is number 2, 3, and 4 that we're going to talk about. So to really nail it down, you have to go from number 1 through to number 5. And just because you get 1 through 5 down doesn't mean you're going to take the greatest video or the greatest photo. You are still going to have to worry about composition. You're going to have to worry about all these other things, light and how you shape it. So don't think if you just nail 1 through 5 that you're going to be a master, because you're not. Number 1 is picture profile. Now, depending on the camera that you have, this could be a Canon or a Sony, your camera is going to be programmed with picture profiles in it. And it's pretty much a style that your camera has, kind of like a preset in Instagram or something to that effect. It is a setting that you can make that is going to make all your pictures or all your photos look that certain way. Canon has a lot of settings that you can make in the menu functions of the picture profile. Sony has an absolute ton. You can get extremely specific. You can get on YouTube and see some of these guys. They have all these settings for the Sonys. Pretty amazing what you can do there. There's also log settings that pretty much make the image completely flat, but it's a larger file and has more data, and it allows you to work more with it when you put it in the computer. So use these picture profiles carefully. If there's a specific mood or specific look that you're going for, then yeah, by all means do it. But my recommendation is to pick one the day that you know, the beginning of the day, and stick with it for the rest of the day, because you don't want to be mixing and matching picture profiles, because it can be hard to make your story make sense if you're doing that all the time. So have control and try to keep that picture profile that you want. Number 2 is shutter speed. Now, shutter speed plays a huge role in what we call motion blur in the pictures. When you edit pictures, you can easily manipulate the colors. But if the picture is out of focus, there's really not much you can do. Actually, if it's bad enough, the picture could be destroyed. If there's a slight blur in the image and it looks soft, yes, there's some tools that you can use, but why risk it? Using a higher shutter speed eliminates that. So when I'm shooting sports or I'm shooting my kids playing around, I like to set my shutter speed as high as I can with the lighting scenario that I'm given. If I'm doing a slow-paced wedding or something to that effect where there's not a whole lot of moving part, then I will set that shutter speed just a little bit lower. Now, the only time I won't do that is if I got too much light, I may boost it some. So it really just depends on your settings. Now, I don't do a lot of landscape or waterfalls or anything like that, but those photographers, what they'll do is they will turn their shutter speeds down really, really low, give them that nice smooth waterfall that you see in all these magazines. It's not just a really crisp waterfall with water droplets everywhere. It actually looks like the water is flowing. That's how they do that, is by adjusting their shutter speed. The big takeaway is if you got a high shutter speed, you're gonna have more crisp images, but you're gonna have less light coming into the camera. And if you have a low shutter speed, you're going to have, well, you're still going to have crisp images, but if your subject is moving quickly, you're not going to. But the lower the shutter speed, the more light that comes in. So it's a trade-off. The 3 is aperture. And basically what aperture is it is the opening within the lens. A lot of lenses don't have this capability, but if you get a professional or semi-professional lens here, this is a very good lens that has the capability of the aperture opening and closing inside. What it is responsible for is what we call bokeh, okay? And that's just how much blur is in the background of your image or your video. So if your aperture is really wide open, it's going to focus on your subject and everything around it is going to be blurry. Or if you have it very high, it's going to be focused on anything that is inside. I won't go into the technical aspects of why things are in focus and out of focus, because it can get pretty complicated with diagrams and graphs, but all you really need to know is that the more open your lens is, the more light that comes in, the blurrier the background. The more closed your lens is, the less light, and the more crisp and focused everything is. Think about when you get your eyes dilated at the doctor. What you're looking at is extremely blurry. It's the exact same principle. Your eyes are so dilated, you're taking in so much, you can only focus on one thing at a time. It's the exact same thing when we're talking about aperture within the lens. Number 4 is ISO, and I've looked the internet over and over and I can't find a definition of what ISO means. You're just going to have to take my word for it. It means ISO. But once you get those other things dialed in, the shutter speed and the aperture, then you can start adjusting the ISO. And it's pretty much your camera's sensitivity to light. You can set that within the settings. The lower the number, the better, because once you get into those higher numbers, you're going to introduce more noise into the image. So my recommendation is to adjust your shutter speed and your aperture and to turn that ISO as low as possible. But let's say you've adjusted your aperture and you've adjusted your shutter speed and it's still really bright, and you got your ISO as low as it can go, it's still really bright, then you may want to increase your shutter speed some. And if that is not enough, you may want to change your aperture a little bit. So it's really a lot of give and take. It's a balancing out the amount of light that's coming into the camera with these 3 settings. Now let's say you got your shutter speed, you don't want to change it. Let's say your aperture, you don't want to change it. You're fixed on being at 1.8, which is what we would consider a very low aperture, and you have an ISO that is as low as it can go and it's still bright. Well, then you got to use something called an ND filter, and an ND filter is pretty much sunglasses for your lens, and we'll talk about those later. But the big takeaway, keep your ISO as low as possible. You'll get a much, much cleaner image from it. Number 5 is white balance, and this is a whole lesson in itself given how many different colors of lights there are. But with this setting, you are telling the camera what it has to do to get the whites to look white. White can have a blue or an orange tone or tint depending on the type of light that is hitting it. Your camera should have an automatic setting, which is okay, but like I said with the other thing, it guesses. It works. It's okay. It is okay in a pinch. but it is not the end all be all, and you need to learn to do it on your own. Cameras also have a preset, which have for cloudy skies, which have for sunset, clear skies. Your camera will have these settings inside of them as well, so those help some, but still not perfect as with your eyes. Even with all these automatic settings in your camera, nothing beats the human eye and matching it as close as you can to exactly what you are seeing. The measure of white balance in your camera is done in what we call Kelvin. So the higher the Kelvin, the more orange your picture is going to be, and the lower the Kelvin, the more blue it is going to be. So keep that in mind. So now let's jump into Lightroom. We're going to take a look at some pictures that I took today, just real quick of my kids. And we did some in manual settings that I fixed. I made those settings, and we did some in automatic, and we'll see the difference, and we can see what images look best. Okay, now let's hop into Lightroom here. We're going to take a look at examples of some pictures that I took today of my kids and give you an idea of what the automatic settings gave us as well as what the manual settings gave us. So we're going to look right here. This is my mean son, Champ. And pretty much all I told him to do was to run at me as fast as you can, and I'm going to take some pictures, okay? Now, he had his hands behind his back, so he's not a very good listener, so we'll see how these turned out. I've not really looked at these. So these first few that you're going to see, these were done in manual mode. I told the camera what I wanted to do, and it was pretty much a guess. I knew my son was going to be moving pretty quick, so as you can see here, I set the exposure to 150, which is decently fast, not too fast. I have the aperture here at 3.5, which I probably could have had the aperture a little bit larger as well, and had the ISO set to 2000. So you can see the images here. We'll click through them. I'm sorry about my dirty wall there. So we'll go through them here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit as well, give you an idea. So fast moving objects, you're going to have some challenges. Okay, so he really wasn't moving super fast, but you can see here that he is in focus, his eyes in focus, his face is in focus. He's looking pretty good. I can see who it is. I can adjust this easily in post. I'm happy with this image. And by the way, just for reference, I'm using a Sony a7 III. Awesome camera, very versatile, great for video, great for photo. Definitely check it out. Let's go to the next image here. So I had the shutter just blasting. I can't remember. I think I had it on 10 frames per second, I believe. So I just held it down 10 frames per second. Bam, 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 bam. And for all of you out there who is kind of well versed in photography already, these were all JPEG images. So normally, yes, I do shoot RAW. That's a whole nother time. We'll talk about that. But I was shooting JPEG for these pictures here. So look at here, next picture. He's still looking pretty good there. I got no problems. Keeping focus on him. Still going pretty good. My goodness, he's so mean, so rotten. So right here. So out of focus here. This is not a usable image, and I would probably have a hard time saving this image if I did want to use it, but it's pretty much an image that I wouldn't even attempt to try to save. It's just so out of focus because all these other ones look pretty good. Could have been the camera just hunting for focus as well. Okay, this Sony a7 III does have pretty good eye detection, so I don't know if that was it or not, but not a usable image. This one here, it looks a little fuzzy. Now this one here I could probably fix a little bit more. I could probably bump up the sharpening. Would help this one a lot. Now I am zoomed in here, and if I zoom out, you can see it don't look that bad. It looks like a decent shot, but when you zoom in, you can really tell that the camera just missed a little bit. So it wasn't so much of the shutter speed, but more so of the focus of the camera. But he was getting closer to me. He was moving closer to me. Had I've had that shutter speed, say to 250, probably would have caught that picture. I don't know. Hard to tell. So, and there's the last one. And same thing. Not a bad one. When you zoom in, I can already tell you're going to see a little bit of fuzz. Yeah, this image is not too crisp, but not terrible either. Okay, so now let's go to the automatic settings. Replay the same scenario, put him in the same spot. I just turned the white balance to automatic, and I also turned all the settings to automatic, which means the camera is thinking what it is seeing is going to be the best. Okay, it is telling me. So pretty much when I turn it to automatic, the camera is going to say, okay, this is what I think is best, and you're going to have to deal with it. So let's see what the camera said. So immediately you can notice here that the color has changed. Okay, this image looks a little more what we'd call cooler, a little more blue. Here's what I set. Here's what it said. So look at my walls in the background. To me, these are actually true color to my walls. It's kind of an off-white. It isn't a white is the color of my walls. Here, it's got everything here as white. And that's not the color of my walls. I've been in this dining room 1,000 times. This here is the color of my walls. This was the color of the room at the time. So off the bat, the camera got the colors wrong. So there you go. Can't trust automatic. All right. So let's zoom in. Let's see what we're doing on focus here. So out of the gate, he's already a little fuzzy. He's not crisp. Now zoomed out, looks fine. But you put this image on a big print, well, you're going to have some issues. So let's keep going. Still a little fuzzy. Colors didn't change nothing. Still a little fuzzy. The colors back here didn't change at all. Still fuzzy. Colors are the same. Still a little fuzzy. Getting a little fuzzier. Now he's pretty fuzzy now. Out here, not so bad. In here, he's a fuzzball. Okay, now he's really blurry. You can get by with this from a zoomed out. This could be a decent, okay Facebook post. Are these salvageable? Yes. And the last one, still. You can tell he's a little fuzzy. So, like I said, some of these are salvageable. I mean, I can fix this in post. I could fix the white balance in post. I can get, this image. I can get those walls to look like these walls. But if you just notice the focus, he's more crisp in these manual. I mean, these first two are perfect. That one is very good. That one is extremely good. That one's not bad. That one's really good. Lost that one completely there. That one is okay. I mean, so, and then that one is, not perfect, but it's okay. You can see right off the bat that when you do the manual settings, you're going to get much less motion blur, which means you're going to have more things in focus and things are going to be easier to work with. So, point proven. Okay, let's go to the next image. Next, I figured I'd give my daughter a chance because she loves to be in front of the camera. So I got two different pictures of her here. I put her beside the window because she's a little cheese ball, but she's a cutie pie and she's daddy's girl. So we can look here. This is in automatic settings, and you can see here what the camera guessed. Okay, the camera guessed at a shutter speed of 160, and it guessed of an aperture of 4.0 with an ISO of 500. So my daughter was not moving. She was standing perfectly still. Okay, and this image looks not bad. It looks crisp. Her eyes are really good in focus. I can even see the blinds here in her eyes. I can see me taking the picture right there. This picture would be pretty easy to fix in post. Not a bad picture. And I got two, pretty much just the exact same thing. So you can see there, automatic, didn't do bad, but let's see if we can do better in manual. Because once you see the manual one, you may say, well, that automatic wasn't as great as I thought it was. I thought that was a great picture. You know, that happens all the time. And look at that. So the one thing that pops out to me here is undoubtedly the skin tones. Okay, look at this skin tone here. This looks like a much more natural skin. The focus is pretty much the same, but the skin looks so much more natural. So you can see I had this set at a lower shutter speed at 100. I had it set at a much lower aperture at 2.8. Well, not much lower, but half lower. And I had the ISO at 320, which was lower than what they recommend. So I went lower on everything that they had. Let's look at the next one here. Exact same images or exact same settings, and you can see here just the skin tones and the natural look. It's just much more pleasing. So let's go do a quick comparison here. Boom, boom. Okay, see my daughter a lot, and that is what she looks like. I mean, she looks like that too, but I would put these two on my wall more than I would these two here. And here's another thing you have to be careful with. When you get a camera that has very good professional capabilities, you got to be careful with the aperture sometimes if you open it up wide open, because here's what can happen. Let me show you here. So if you look here, especially with cameras with eye autofocus, okay, and this ain't a bad thing what I'm about to tell you here, but if you look here, her front eye is in perfect focus. She has a little bit of tilt. The back side of her face here is a little farther away from the camera, so you can see here that her front eye, the one that's closest to me, is in focus, and that back eye is not as in focus. Okay, now she does have her head turned, exact same settings, next picture, but her face is more level with the camera, with the lens, and you can see both eyes are in focus. But you know, sometimes it will happen if you have eye detect autofocus, where this front eye will be perfectly in focus and this back eye will be a little bit blurry. So don't get too worked up about that, because a lot of people go for that professional look. Here's my last picture here. Decided to go outside and see what it would look like. She did two different poses here because she's a big ham. But you can see here, her hands on her hips. This is automatic. The camera did a 1250 shutter speed here, so very fast. It was very bright out, so the camera knew, hey, I gotta use a high shutter speed to get this picture exposed properly. It also used a aperture of f4.5, and it used an ISO of 100, which is about as low as you can go. I think you can go to 60 on the manual. On the Sony a7 III, I'm not 100% sure on that, but 100 is very low ISO. So you can see what it got here. White balance, that's what they've said as well. And in the white balance here, automatically it's set into whatever it thinks it is. So let's go to the next picture, see what we got. All right, so hard to do an exact comparison because two different poses. Okay, she moved a little bit, so, but off the bat, look at my greens and my sky here, a little bit more dull and muddy, and this is my automatic setting again, a little more dull, a little more bright and vibrant here. Again, skin colors, a little bit bluish there, a little more warm there. And so it had all those high settings, and I got this. So they had an ISO of 100. I had an ISO of 50. So they had a shutter speed of 1,250. I had a shutter speed of 400. So much lower. I had an aperture of 4.0. They had an aperture of 4.5. So I had this exposed a little bit brighter than what they did. So why are my settings so much different? Well, you can see is that she has turned and moved a little bit, so I have to adjust my settings. So look at the settings differences between us here. So I'm lower in ISO, I am much lower in shutter speed, and I'm a little bit more open with my aperture, but yet my image looks a little bit brighter. But I mean, maybe I'm being biased here, but I think it's a little more cleaner. Okay, let's zoom in here and get an idea. We used high shutter speeds here, and really we just used the high shutter speed just to get the image exposed. I mean, my little girl here wasn't fast moving or anything like that. She was staying in one place, but you gotta decrease the amount of light that comes into that camera. So you can see here, she's in focus. She looks pretty good, but it just looks better there. I mean, look at that face. Look at this face. Let me look at the skin here and look at it here. Look at the skies. Sorry. Look at the skies and the trees. They just look cleaner, better, more vibrant. So that is it. You are now equipped with everything that you need to know to get exactly what you want from your camera of any situation. Keep in mind, there's changes to be made over the course of a day when you shoot manual mode. So you just can't put these settings in and go. You know, once you get some practice, you're going to learn that your light's going to change. All these things are going to change. You're going to have to adjust them on a fly. So you're at a wedding. It's very common at weddings. You're going to go from inside to outside to back inside to upstairs. There's more windows. There's less windows. There's green fluorescent lights. All these things can happen, so you need to be ready for that. But the most important takeaway and the most common theme is number 2, 3, and 4, which make up what we call the exposure triangle. Exposure is undoubtedly one of the most, if not the most important thing. Exposure and focus, exposure and focus. You got to get those things right. Can you see the subject? Are they too bright? Are they not bright enough? This is what it all boils down to. I like to do my picture profile first and do 2 through 5 and on a case-by-case scenario, whatever I'm inside or outside, wherever I may be. But nailing number 2, 3, and 4 each and every shot is extremely important. Extremely important. So that's it, guys. I got nothing else to tell you. Be sure to take a look at that download. It will go into a little more in depth with a little more pictures. Be sure to look on the very last page of that download, as there is a phone background. Screenshot it, put it on there, and let it be a constant reminder to you of what you are shooting. If you have any questions, please always reach out to me at digitalcameraacademy@gmail.com. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. More importantly, I want to answer those questions you may have. Just send them to me. I love them. So that's it, guys. I will talk to you soon. See ya.